Afternoon for such a historic moment. A moment that I never saw in my lifetime coming across. The speaker for the hour, of course, is going to be history. It's going to be history in Decatur County, history in Georgia, for us in South Georgia. As we put out in the program, and as the theme said, the soil that remembers still grows. And it's a couple of ways you can interpret that. But the best way that I interpret it is that if you take some of history and you plant it in the youth, which are our future, they can continue to grow that history. But if you abolish history, as the saying goes, it will surely repeat itself. Things that some of the elders went through back in the day. I got one really good friend who's in here today, Mr. Larry Edwards, 91 years old. He
14-year-old African-American boy from Chicago who traveled to Mississippi in the summer of 1955 to visit his great-uncle and cousins. While in Mississippi, Emmett and his cousins visited Breyer's Grocery and Meat Market. He whistled at a woman named Carol O'Brien. Emmett meant no harm. He had Pablo, which caused a stutter. One night in 1955, at his great-uncle's house, Ward Bryant and J.W. Milliam kidnapped and tortured Emmett. They brutalized him so severely that his body was so unrecognizable until his mother, Mamie Till, identified a ring with the initials LT given to him by his father, Louis Till. Mamie Till chose to have an open casket funeral to show the world the atrocity committed against her son. Despite her immense grief, she remained strong for her family and the world. This act spurred a movement for justice. Emmett Till's story is often suppressed due to its brutal nature, and schools sometimes avoid discussing it because of the racial injustice. Yet, it's a story everyone should know and learn from. No mother should endure what Mamie Till did. Emmett would have turned 85 on his birthday, July 25th. Hearing his name or story gives me chills because he never got to experience life fully. He was a joyful 14-year-old who loved making people laugh despite his condition. Young people should learn from his story because similar injustices continue today. Be mindful and cautious as the world, though no longer segregated, remains dangerous. Our parents protect us, but one day we will face the world on our own. Thank you for listening to my speech about Emmett Till and honoring his legacy in the civil rights movement.
told you, didn't I? Well, thank you all so much. I want to give you a round of applause for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I also want to thank everybody who was in the video and your family members for helping us to set it up. And I don't know if you noticed the theme that each of them talked about work. And they each talked about how hard it was, or that there were moments of toughness in their lives, but yet they overcame. And you heard my dad talk about I'm gonna take a little license here because it's my dad, and I have a microphone, so. Anyway, you heard him talk about being obedient to authority, and he was talking about sports. Well, what you didn't hear, and I didn't edit it, because if I had edited it, it probably would have been, longer than it needed to be. But what he still thinks about is that his coach, his baseball coach, told him to do something. And over 70 years ago, he didn't do it. He made his own mind up, did his own thing. But it's been 70 years, and it still kind of bothers him that he was not obedient to authority. And so that's one of the many lessons that he has taught all of us throughout our years, to be obedient to authority. And for all of you, please, if you know any residents of Decatur County, Bainbridge, who are at least 90 years old and above, I would love to have the opportunity to interview them. We want to add to our videos as we go along, and we'll just see how God blesses us to use them as we move forward. So I'd like to take this opportunity to introduce our guest speaker. She is, the words in the program do not give her as much, I don't know the words I'm looking for. She's such a woman of grace, and I can't look at you while I say this, I'm gonna get emotional. Such a woman of grace, such a woman of honor. I've had the honor to spend some time with her, to speak with her, and I'm without words, really. And I know that to carry the legacy that she does, yes, it's honorable, but I know that there are moments of burden as well. But yet she carries it in such a beautiful way. And she shares her time with us and people all over the world, talking about her great-great-grandfather, Frederick Douglass, and her great-grandfather, Booker T. Washington. But what must it be like to stand before people over and over and over again and talk about your legacy? You're proud of it, of course, but then there's such a burden that comes along with it as well. And so, Miss Nettie Washington Douglass, we're so grateful to have you here. Words cannot express. I remember being in middle school and high school and having to learn about your great-great-grandfather and your great-grandfather. And I was always amazed at the work that they did, and they had to have some sense of legacy while they were doing that work. They didn't want to just make life better for themselves. They didn't want to just make life better for their families. They wanted to make life better for the world. And you're carrying on that legacy. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I will say, I just want to read just a little bit of her biography. You all have it with you. Those of you who did not get a program, I encourage you to please get a program before you leave.
Good afternoon. Now you have to bear with me because because I have allergies and they are driving me crazy this morning. If I took my medicine, I couldn't talk, my mouth would get dry. So you have to bear with me with drinking water occasionally and wiping my nose. All right, thank you. I am truly honored to have been invited by your president, Reverend, which I just found out, Dr. Beverly Sargent. I learned of such a connection between your president and my new friend, Beverly, and Tuskegee Institute. I am always thrilled to learn of those touch points and connections. They really do highlight how connected we all are in our shared history and through our shared work for change. Beverly shared with me that her uncle, say L.O., Otto Edwards, was a student at Tuskegee Institute, and that George Washington Carver was his agricultural teacher at school. What an impressive legacy and history. Although I am not surprised that her uncle's family continues to carry on the legacies of both Booker T. Washington and W.E. Du Bois. Before sharing my message, I briefly want to acknowledge Dr. Du Bois's connection with my great-grandfather with gratitude and respect. The conversation around Du Bois and Washington has too often been reduced to a rivalry, accommodation versus agitation, industrial education versus classical education, gradualism versus immediate civil rights. But history is messy and nuanced and complex. It is rarely so simple. Booker T. Washington, as you all know, was born enslaved. He believed deeply that economic independence, vocational skill, land ownership, and institution building were foundational to Black survival in a violently hostile America. His work at Tuskegee was rooted in a practical question. How do people who have been denied everything build stability in a system designed to exclude them? Dr. Du Bois challenged the nation differently. Again, as you all know very well, he insisted that political rights, higher education, and full citizenship could not be postponed without moral cost. He refused to allow injustice to be managed quietly. He demanded that America live up to its Constitution and its stated ideals. Both men were responding to terror, disenfranchisement, economic exploitation. Both men were strategists confronting the same brutal realities from different angles. We have always needed both perspectives and both strategies. We continue to need new and different ideas and ways of thinking to rise to meet the challenges of our own time. Our work is strengthened when we can hold multiple strategies at once. We can HR 1144. Ask them to bring it to the floor for a vote. Tell them you believe in prevention education. Tell them you believe in protecting children before harm occurs. And tell them that honoring Frederick Douglass' legacy means more than quoting his words. It means advancing policies that reflect his values. Both you and I have dedicated our lives to educating generations about their history. What an awesome responsibility that is. Now, let me end where Frederick Douglass so often ended, and where history itself is calling us to stand. We are living in the 250th anniversary of this nation. This is not a distant milestone. It is not something on the horizon. It is here. There will be celebrations, there will be speeches, there will be fireworks, flags, and familiar words about freedom. But Frederick Douglass warned us that anniversaries are not for comfort. They are moments of conscience. We asked America not what it said about liberty, but what liberty actually meant for those who had been excluded from it and are still excluded to this day. And in this 250th year, we must ask ourselves the same question. Who is freedom? Who is freedom for now? Who is protected? Who is still waiting? We do not honor the founding of this nation by repeating its myths. We honor it by completing its unfinished work. We are living in difficult times. Rights are being questioned. Truth is being distorted. History is being minimized. And the question before us is not, quote, what is happening? The question is, what are we going to do about it? Frederick Douglass told us that power concedes nothing without a demand. He told us that if there is no struggle, there is no progress. I have been carrying that torch since I was a little girl. It was passed to me by the women who raised me, by the ancestors who came before me, and by the history that shaped my life. Today, that torch belongs to all of us. And a torch is not meant to be admired. A torch is meant to be carried. It is meant to light dark places. It is meant to expose injustice. It is meant to warm the cold corners of indifference. Frederick Douglass did not ask for applause. He asked for courage. He did not ask for comfort. He asked for conviction. He stood in rooms where he was not welcome. He spoke truths that made powerful men tremble. He refused to soften his voice so that others could remain comfortable in their silence. And if he were standing here today, in this 250th year of this republic, I do not believe he would ask us whether we feel hopeful. I believe he would ask us whether we feel responsible. Responsible for the children who are watching us. Responsible for the freedoms that were paid for in blood. Responsible for the unfinished work that still lies before us. History is not something we visit. History is something we continue. And we're not here merely to remember Frederick Douglass. We are here to live him. To speak when it is inconvenient. To act when it is difficult. To demand when it would be easier to remain quiet. Because this moment, this anniversary, this generation, will one day be someone else's history lesson. And when that day comes, will they not ask how eloquently spoke? Excuse me. They will not ask how eloquently. Generations pass in a blink of an eye. If you don't record and study our ancestors' stories, who will? And if we don't we lose a part of ourselves? In 2007, my eldest son, Kenneth B. Morris Jr., and I started Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives. Frederick Douglass Family Initiatives is a public charity whose mission is to build strong children and to end systems of exploitation and oppression. We believe that modern forms of slavery exist in large part because of our failure as a nation to reconcile ourselves with our past. In 1865, when 4 million people were emancipated after 2.5 centuries of servitude, we stopped talking about what happened. We needed education, and instead we received silence and distortion. In that knowledge vacuum, crimes were allowed to repeat themselves. So, at FDFI, we began working in class